others that I just see on: Jeff Lewis, Diana, long time no talk. Michael, nice to see you again. Al Portney, San Michelle Wine Estates. Hey, Al. They buy a lot of your wine, Silversea does. Tom and Brenda Schaefer, nice to have you. We're gonna miss the cruise this year, but maybe next year we're gonna definitely do it. Pat, thanks for joining. You recognize me with my beard. So let me just start by welcoming the Silversea team. Oh, Scott. Hi, Scott. Scott's got a lot of questions for you guys. Let me first start by welcoming everybody. Thank you for your time. We've got a lot of information to share, especially that great refreshing slide that's up right now that they'll tell us about. But my name is Michael Mastrocola. I been in travel for 40 years, have worked through a lot of different travel experiences, had to recreate ourselves many, many times simply because of the economic and the stability of the world. We 2 or 3 years it took to regain after 9/11. You remember what happened. Nobody wanted to travel after terrorist attacks, after 2008. The 2008 economic bust, we had 2 or 3 years to regain momentum. So what we're in right now is one of those crisis modes. We've always come out of that. We've survived, we rebuilt, we re-strategized, much with the help of our partners, the cruise line partners. For the last 22 years, I've been a very loyal partner with Silversea because it's Italian family started it. It had the culture of small ship, ultra luxury, all inclusive, which was a perfect partner with our wine and chef hosts. And we wanted to do the proper thing and provide our host with as excellent a product as we can. And that was how we became so connected to Silversea. Over the years, Silversea's fleet has grown. They have expanded to what I think is going to be a new paradigm in travel, which will be small ship experiential travel to destinations that maybe haven't been as frequently visited, like the Galapagos, like the Antarctic and the Arctic. Larry and Marianne Sy from Moonsign Winery last year took their first Silversea cruise on the Silver Cloud to the Antarctic, and that was their entree. Can you imagine a first cruise for them to be the Antarctic? And they were so happy, and all their guests, it was an experience of a lifetime. And Larry's on, and he said they're gonna bring more people next year when they go back to Europe. So we feel that right now we're at a little bit of a pause. And I think it's a good time that we're pausing because the earth needed some attention. We were so busy doing things and using the resources of this earth. And after seeing this pause and reading about the canals in Venice and the dolphins swimming around and so much of the pollution has vanished, I think this was a good break in many ways. It is a sad state of affairs that the travel industry is so economically impacted. And my heart goes out to everyone in the industry, the people on board, the people in destinations that are waiting for cruise ships to arrive. And of course, the travel industry, airlines, cruise lines, hotels, and travel agents themselves. Speaking of travel agents, I have a very good team that's on here. Millennium wouldn't be what we are without the great care of my staff. Mariah Clark's been, how many years? 9 years, 7 years?
7 years, going on 8.
And she worked with me in Carmel when she moved here, and then she got married, moved to Augusta, Georgia, with her husband in the military, and we kept her on. She had a baby, and she's still here doing great work for all of us. Christina, a lot of you have talked to Christina. She's, everybody's working remote, by the way. Christina's in Monterey. Yeah. Kaylee's in Sacramento. Crystal is just moved to Arizona. And they're excellent young ladies that help, they're the face of the company. They care. We're a family business. They care like I care. And that's why I think we get such a good rapport with our guests. We do all that we can to make sure that their travel is handled much like we would do for our own family members. And that's why I think we have repeat. The wine and chefs that we work with, many of them, this is a new concept to them, wine and food cruise travel. They, I believe, understand, and maybe some of you hosts will chime in, as you did, Monty, with our testimonial video, that they were introduced to Silversea by Millennium and invite their very proprietary, confidential client list to join them. And once they get on board, they realize the excitement and the way they're treated, and they really find out that it's a pretty satisfying program for everybody. And so they return year after year. And that's what I'm grateful for, is the bringing together of such wonderful people that join in and celebrate the best travel experiences in the world amidst some of the most amazing destinations aboard 5-star luxury. And their wine is the centerpiece. That's the icing on the cake. So at this point, let me just introduce the Silversea staff that is scattered across the country here. Rachel Woodward, thank you, Rachel, for organizing the Zoom and the mechanics of it. Rachel went to USC. She played basketball there. She went to work for Crystal Cruise Lines for a while, and then came back and over to Silversea, and we've drank a lot of Sauvignon Blanc together. And she was promoted to the expedition team. So Rachel will talk about the excitement that goes on in with the expedition in Antarctic and Galapagos and things like that. Megan is with us, Southern California girl also. No, I'm sorry, you're
right. I am originally from SoCal, but I live in San Francisco now.
Okay, and Megan's came from the land travel program recently. She got hired by Silversea just at the peak of the COVID. She's been inducted by the excitement of what's going on now. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of top executives that have come and gone throughout, that managed cruise lines, and they managed all the changes in the environment. And we're actually lucky at this point because we have the very best travel executive right now that took the time to join us. Mark Conroy has a long career. We probably started about 40 years ago at the same time. And Mark has come from a variety of places, and he found a home as managing Silversea in the Americas. Of course, he has to arm wrestle with the Italians in Monaco, but he's done a great job. And I want to introduce Mark because basically he is very much like the Millennium team. He cares about people. He cares about his staff. He cares about his customer and the Silversea team that works on board. So without any more rambling, I want to let Rachel, Mark, and Megan take the next step. Thank you, guys.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for that great introduction, and I appreciate the kind words. The great news about the reason Silversea's and Millennium work so well is because Michael's actually taught us how to do this. Uh, every time we get a new hotel director or a new food and beverage manager, they go, "No, we can't do this. Nobody can be in our kitchens. What do you mean serving somebody else's wine?" And Michael always makes it work. His Italian American charm always wins them over, and if not, he uses Italian temper to yell out of an Italian. That usually solves the problem. So it's been a great partnership, Michael. We appreciate the loyalty and all the great
That
people.
reminds me, Mark, that reminds me of the time that I tried to change a little bit of the menu on the Relais and Chateau dining menu in La Champagne, La Dame now.
Yeah.
And no, we have to go back to Relais and Chateau and this and that. And I said, but our vintner says, you have to remove the cream out of the soup. And they said, no, that's not possible. Of course, when we got on, guess what happened?
Yeah, exactly. This is don't ask, don't tell kind of thing, So, but anyway, the great news is that restaurant we have total control over now. So those won't be problems. And by the way, on the Moon, it's going to have 65 seats. So we weren't going to have the challenges of when and who can eat there at what time. For years, I felt like I was the maitre d' for that one, having good customers call me and say, Mark, I need to get in on this date. So the Dame is going to be much enlarged, and it's a great experience. And a partnership with the Leak, by the way, which they know how to make glass, but they're not telling us how to make food. So anyway, I'd like to show you, this is a great shot. Some of these shots, by the way, are shot by Rachel. She does run sales for our expedition team, and she's been to most of these destinations. So in many cases, I'm going to default to her when we're talking about details. We kind of talk about, what's happening in this, and we're all kind of in this together. I kind of say it's a little different, like we're all stuck in the same storm, but we're in different boats, I think. Some of us are in lifeboats, some of us are in big ships, and unfortunately, a lot of them are tied up. As Michael said, we have 8 ships in our fleet that are tied up, most of them in France, one in Manila, and one in the Galapagos. And our sister mother company has 85 ships tied up. And if you've read the reports, I can tell you this now, that according to our quarterly report, we're running through about $250 to $290 million in cash a month. The great news is our parent company, and we as part of it, our group made $2 billion last year. So we have enough capital. Our lenders and our owners understand who we are, and they've been very tolerant, and they've really helped us. And people were nervous about Silversea's being acquired by Royal Caribbean, but I think, quite frankly, if we wouldn't have been, we may not be here, because since March, we have issued $350 million worth of refunds. And we were a $500 million company, and we just didn't have $350 million sitting around. So it's worked well, and I think we're going to get through this. Unprecedented times. I've been in the industry since 1973, so I thought I'd seen everything. And by the way, this is the ship now sitting in the islands off of Spain. They're now all in France, either in Sète or in Marseille, near the headquarters office. So, but I've been in the industry since '73 and thought I'd seen everything. Hijackings, oil crises, 9/11, the 2008 disaster. And if you would have asked me, I would have said I would never have imagined a business that could, or an event that could stop us operating from really, we haven't operated since March. And it's been an amazing restructure of the business. But fortunately, the great news is we got a great business, and it's going to move forward. People ask me right away, and maybe I'll just address the elephant in the room. When are we going to start sailing? And I think that's when we can tell people that we're going to make sure that you're safe from the time you leave your home until the time you get back home. So what we did is, the CDC, we've worked with them for 40 years because there's only 3 organizations that have to report illnesses in their facilities. One of them is hospitals. The second one is nursing homes and retirement homes. And the third one is cruise ships. So we've had to do this, the requirement for this since 1973, and have had a good working relationship with the CDC. But unfortunately, in this virus, the CDC has become very political. They've got a total change in leadership, and they're under siege. And we haven't been able to get their attention. We keep submitting questions and information to them, and they're not particularly responsive. So our chairman and the head of NCL got together, and we set up our own healthy sale panel. And what happened is we've hired 11 experts in their fields from around the world, epidemiologists, people that are hospitality specialists, plus our own specialists, and including Governor Levitt, who used to run the Human Health Services, and Dr. Scott, who was Surgeon General for a while. So what we've done is we put this panel together to come up with a suggestion of protocols that we need to do. And we're going to get the report on September 15th or something like that. And then we're going to combine them with our current protocols and submit them to the CDC, and then have them respond and see if we can get moving again. But the whole idea is to create this environment. Obviously, we'd love to have a cure, of some kind of treatment that would minimize the aspects of the impact of this virus, or obviously some kind of way of eliminating it would be great, a vaccine. But in the interim, what we're working on is having something so that we can make sure that no one gets on board the ship who has it, because as all of you know, it doesn't start on ships. What happens is people bring it aboard and then inadvertently share it with their fellow guests and our crew. So the ideal in theory would be, if there's not a vaccine, is that we would have a testing process. And we were experimenting now with over 200 different testing organizations to find one that's accurate and that's also pretty immediate. So the ideal would be, in theory, and it will probably change because things are ultimately changing. If you're not flexible in these days, you're in deep trouble, is that we would probably send out a test kit or organize a test for guests. And so they would take it the day before, or the day they were supposed to leave for their trip. And then, of course, when you got picked up by the car service that normally takes you to the airport, you need to make sure that the car service tests their employees and cleans their equipment. And then the airport has to do all their protocols, and the airplanes have to do their protocols. And then the ground operators at the other end have to do their protocols. And then when you get to the ship or the hotel the night before the ship, we'll most likely test you again, just like we do with our crew and everyone else, so that when you all board, we can feel comfortable that nobody has it while on board. And then what happens during the cruise is that we'll have the ground operators sign a contract that says they have to follow certain protocols, again, testing their staff, cleaning their equipment, not overcrowding coaches and minibuses, making sure that their private car drivers are all tested and the cars are in good shape, not taking you to locations where they're very crowded and you have the opportunity, wearing masks, all the things that we need to do. So that's how we think we can get back into operation. We're hoping, knock a little wood, that we'll be able to enter service probably in early November, once the CDC has approved our protocols. The first ship that will probably sail will be the Galapagos ship, because of the fact it's so small at 50, and we can get people to it. It's only 100 guests. And once you're on the ship, by the way, you don't see any other humans for the entire cruise. That's going to be followed by the Silver Moon. She's going to be delivered on October 29th. And then she will have her first cruise out of Fort Lauderdale in early November, do some Caribbean and then 2 Panama Canals, and then do a around South America cruise. The Silver Shadow will be in November in Florida, again, doing Caribbean cruises out of Fort Lauderdale or Barbados. And then last but not least, our expedition ships will go back into operation, hopefully in November, early December, and be running Antarctica season. So that's the plan. The commitment you have from us and our chairman is that as much as it's painful to spend $290 million a month and not have any income coming in, it would be a disaster if we start operating and people get sick. So if we're not confident that we can keep you healthy on board, we're not going to operate. So now that I've talked about all that terrible stuff, here's our fleet. As Michael said, we're expanding it. We're become the leader in the luxury expedition business, and now we're the largest fleet actually in luxury, even in the classical business. So we're really happy the way this business is growing. To give you an idea, in 2019 and 2020, we should have carried almost 100,000 customers, even though we're a small company, and had about 600 million in sales. Obviously, that didn't work out that way. 2020 started to be one of the best years in our history, but things changed. One of the things that we do is we go just about everywhere where land touches water. destinations everywhere in the world. If you've been everywhere, there's a chance that, there it goes. There's a chance that we go to places that you haven't been before. And this is just a list of the different cruises we have in the different regions in the world. Antarctica obviously is a very unique cruise, the Galapagos, and we have 59 cruises in the Med in 2021, 30 in Northern Europe, 7 in the Arctic, 18 in Alaska, 14 in Australia and New Zealand if they open back up, and 37 in Antarctica, and 38 in the Caribbean and around the Galapagos area. So this is kind of a by month. Some people plan their trips by destination, other plan the month, and we like to be in places where it's peak season. And then, of course, Michael, I think I'll let you talk about this slide because it's your cruise.
Oh, well, this is one of our wine hosts, John and Robin Lale. They had planned the Canary Islands. Robin came on the ship for the first time about 9 years ago. And because Silversea was purchasing their wine, and she thought it'd be good, but she was apprehensive because John is very active. He's a skier, he's a bicycler, and she said he might not like cruising. And I said, well, you got to try this. If you don't like it, you don't. And they got their 30 people the first cruise and ended up with eagerness from their wine club members. And about a week before the cruise, I went to Rob. I said, once you get on board, people are going to enjoy themselves. You might want to have a plan for next year because if they book it on board, they can get a savings. And she said, no, I got to see if I like Silversea and if my clients are well treated and if John's comfortable on the ship. When they got on the ship, John had a big smile on his face that never left. And Robin, about 4 days into it, she goes, Michael, can we talk about, next year's cruise? And that was seven cruises ago. So next year, they're planning on going to the Canary Islands, which is a first for them. They've been to Tangiers and things like that. So this is one of our Taste of Life hosts, and Robin and John have a couple of 100-point wines. This is one of them, Molehill. And they have a terrific following. Robin was on the cover of the Wine Spectator May issue. If you haven't got it, go grab it. It's a good article about it. One other bit about Robin is she's the grandniece of Gustav Niebaum that founded Engelnook Winery in the late 1800s. Robin's father was the fine winemaker, one of the greatest winemaker that helped put Napa on the map in the 50s and 60s. And Robin took over. She co-founded Dominus and Maryvale before she started Lale Winery and with John. And she's brought in not only her 2 daughters, Erin and Shannon, into the business, but they've named a wine after each of their grandchildren. And there's a tribute to the Lale family as it goes back to Niebaum. So anyway, we're very excited to have them as one of our Taste of Life hosts. Thanks.
And you're still on?
Well, we have Larry and Marianne that are connected here. I went to their home 2 years ago, I guess, and talked about the wonders of Silversea. That was
I think Michael may have had a little bit of internet interference.
Yeah, they shared some of their wine, their Moonsai wine, which is a
Yeah, Michael, we might have a bit of a delay on.
Am I coming through?
There you are.
Maybe it's the wine. The
Your video went away.
I think there's some bandwidth issues.
Maybe it's the.
There you
I'm
go.
not sure where they're from. Okay, here, it looks like pictures are coming back. So this slide is Moonsai Winery and Chef Grazing's Mediterranean cruise. As I mentioned earlier, Larry and Marianne did the expedition to Antarctic. This year they're partnering with Chef Kurt Grazing's. That ship was supposed to leave on the moon, their first cruise this year, but it was postponed because of the moon delay. And now they postponed till next year on this glorious itinerary to all my favorite places. Conveniently, Larry and Marianne Sy live near the Lales in Angwin in Napa, and their winery is in the northern part of Napa Valley. They make some terrific cult wines, and very, very excited about joining us. Chef Kurt Grazing in Carmel, he's been a host for 14 or 15 years. Jeff has been on, Jeff, who's listening in, has been on his cruise before, and this will be a great food and wine cruise to all the favorite parts. This little bit here in Rome, starting in Civitavecchia, we always do something, the Millennium Tastes of Life, we always do something a little extra in some of the ports. This cruise will start off in Rome at a visit to our family vineyard and farm outside of Rome. On the way to board the ship, we have wine. My cousins make their own wines. They grow everything, they cook everything. It's farm to table, and it's a really fun experience to see how an Italian country lifestyle is. In Sorrento, we do the Amalfi Coast, and the Isle of Capri, Sicily, Greece, Montenegro. By the way, Kotor, Montenegro, if you've not been, it's Europe's southernmost fjord, and it's gorgeous to sail into it. I always wake people up around 6:30 in the morning to go up to the top deck and watch sailing in, because it looks like it could be sailing along the an Austrian countryside. It's so beautiful. It's a 2-hour ride along the fjord into the very end, which is Kotor, Montenegro. We do wine tasting there. In Dubrovnik, we do the same. We go to our favorite country.
I think we've lost Michael again. So if we don't mind, Michael, I'm going to forward the slide and continue. By the way, this is the Silver Moon. This is the Silver Moon. It's under construction. The reason it was late is the shipyard closed.
Restaurant for an amazing meal.
I'm trying to mute him, Mark. I don't think he can hear us.
Yeah, okay. So this is the Silver Moon. She will be delivered on October 29th. She's 90% full. The only thing actually she's really missing right now is, or 95% done, is a lot of her finish and furnishings, because the factories that make the furniture and things have been shut down due to COVID. As you all probably recall, Italy was a pioneer in this whole COVID mess and had a terrible time. Since then, they've recovered, but it's delayed the ship. Just some shots. That's the owner's suite there on the right-hand side. And then the cool thing here is our salts bar, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing on the ship that's different than the other ships. You see the piano there. That's the La Dolce Vita bar, and of course we have an amazing deck area. And this ship is almost 50,000 tons and only carries 596 guests. So it's very spacious and lots of public space. This is another shot of the lounge. This is kind of what you see when you enter the ship. In the daytime, it's a kind of nice place to come and read a book. And in the evening, there's a great cocktail service there and a piano player. This is our Arts Cafe, which is Silversea's version of Starbucks. It's open to almost 24 hours a day. It's 20 hours a day. It starts early in the morning with early risers, and it has a lot of nice little pre-breakfast breakfast. It also has like yogurts and things. And then after about 9 o'clock, then the Bloody Mary bar opens up there, and they make a dozen different types of Bloody Marys. Plus, they have a little bit more additional food from it becomes the snacks. And then in the afternoon, there's some pre-lunch snacks, and there's some nice sandwiches during lunchtime. And then at dinner, there's some nice. And by the way, it's a full bar too, so it's just an amazing place, and it's a great place to meet people. And of course, it's got some amazing views. This is the spa. This is the aqua part of the spa, which has been greatly expanded since the Muse, and it by far will be the largest and the nicest spa of any ship on our fleet. And something's building up here slowly. There we go. Sorry about this, guys. Technology is wonderful when it works. We've got a lot of different space. The smallest suite on the ship is 365 square feet, including the balcony, and the largest is over 2,000 square feet. So we got an accommodation for anyone in every pocketbook. And the great news it is every suite has its own butler. Every suite that is laid out and has the items that you want before you arrive, and it's a great place. And the balcony allows you to enjoy the weather all the time and not have to go out on deck to do so. And by the way, I will mention that one of the things we're doing is we've made some modifications to our air conditioning systems. We already had HEPA filters in all of them, but we've added the lights to them. I'm having a senior moment, but lights that will kill any bacteria or viruses in them. And then because of all the open windows, we have windows that open, we have very little circulation within the ship. The ship changes almost immediately. The air that comes into your suite, into the ship, goes and is taken out, exhaust, actually in the kitchen, interestingly enough. And between that, it passes through HEPA filters and everything else. So that's one of the reasons we think that the ships are, because of the fact that we have balconies and we don't spread a lot of the air conditioning from room to room, we can control anything that happens. Although again, we're trying to create this bubble. This is the worst suite on the ship, so it's a lovely place to stay. There's a nice walk-in closet, a nice bedroom, bathroom with a shower and a tub. Although a lot of people use the tub as their second closet, and then as a walk-in closet. It's just a lovely experience. I'm going to show you a quick video.
We're here. This is spectacular. Man, are you going to get a picture now? Oh my golly. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, but isn't it bright in the sun? Man, this has been a trip. Oh yeah.
Anyway, the video was supposed to run, and what we did is we basically we had a guy spend the day listening to the moon landing, and he took about this 50-second film that talked about the moon arriving and the new moon, obviously our new ship. So, by the way, Michael has access to this. We also have access to it online, and it's kind of fun to watch. The one thing I like about it is the fact that all of us kind of remember where we were on that day. So, again, sorry about the technology issues, but we'll continue to pull through. This is the Silver Origin. She's a new Galapagos ship. Currently, we were running the Galapagos with this Silver Galapagos, which was the oldest ship in our fleet. Actually, I built it for Renaissance Cruises in 1988. So it was a very old ship, but at the same time, it had the highest scores in the fleet at 9.8, 9.9 out of a scale of 1 to 10. And so what we've done now is built this purpose-built ship designed for the Galapagos. And so we have this amazing experience that's led by some great team. All of our crew on board the ship are Ecuadorians. A lot of them are native from the Galapagos themselves, and they're very passionate about the experience that you'll have in these beautiful islands. And it's like being on your own private yacht. It's almost 5,000 tons, yet it only holds 100 guests. It has 2 dining rooms that each seat the entire complement. So there's a lot of space on board. So I shouldn't say physical distancing won't be a problem. This is what you're going to see, by the way, when you first board. By the way, the ship never docks. It's always anchored or standing by because of the fact there's not a dock big enough in the Galapagos. So you'll board the ship via Zodiacs and you'll walk up a platform and walk into this, which was what we call base camp. So this is actually one of the smallest staterooms on the ship. So you can see it's an amazing stateroom. And what we did in this one to make the bathroom seem bigger, we actually put a window in it. That window can either be clear or you touch a button and it fogs itself, much like if any of you have been on a river cruise. There's another video. Again, another video that worked when we tested it, but it's not working now, so I'll move on. A year from the date of the delivery of the moon, the Dawn will come out, a sister ship, identical sister ship of the moon, and she'll be an experience. The ship. I did want to talk about salt, which is not, we're not going to make you eat salt. It's sea and land taste, and what we've done is we've taken a restaurant we called Indochine before, and then converted it so that we'll be serving the food from the destinations we visit. So when we're visiting the Dalmatian coast, we'll be serving Italian food, and we'll be serving food from formerly what used to be Yugoslavia. When we're in the Greek islands, we'll be serving Greek food. When we're in South America, we'll be serving food from that region. So the whole idea is to have this environment where, people for years have said to me, Mark, you take us to these wonderful destinations, but then you don't have any of the local food. So this is our response to that. It's a very complicated process because obviously for purchasing and things, and we'll also be featuring the wines from these regions in a place called the Salt Bar. So we're pretty excited about it. And one last place is something called the Salt Lab, where food experts will actually talk about the food and do some demonstrations of how people cook in that region. And that's probably a facility that we'll be using when we have our wine groups aboard. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Rachel because she's done this program and it's a pretty amazing thing.
Great, thanks, Mark. Well, Larry, I know you're really familiar with our Antarctica program. We launched something unique to Antarctica. So typically Antarctica is a 10 or 18-day voyage, starting in Ushuaia, and you spend a couple days crossing the Drake Passage. We now are offering an Antarctica Fly Cruise Bridge program. And what this allows, we're avoiding the Drake Passage. So we're including a pre-night hotel in Punta Arenas. All guests will stay at this hotel. We'll have our expedition team there. The following morning, you will board a chartered flight. It's a couple-hour flight. It lands in Antarctica in the peninsula at King George Island. And you'll have all of your expedition gear on, your rubber boots, and you'll walk about 1/4 of a mile and you're board Zodiacs to board the Silver Explorer. So it's a shorter trip, which is great. Typically Antarctica is a 2 to 3 week vacation. This is a 6-day voyage and you avoid the Drake Passage. So this will launch December of 2021. We'll have 4 voyages offering this program.
It's an amazing airport, by the way. It's basically been cleared and they made a runway out of the volcanic material there, but when you land, there'll probably be snow piled up as high as the aircraft is. And these are 2 specially built aircraft. They normally hold 140 people each, but we're only going to put 70 on each of them. So we'll have 2 aircraft serving this. Again, this is a great trip for somebody that doesn't want to spend wants to see Antarctica, but doesn't want to spend 2 or 3 weeks doing it. And this kind of shows you what's happening there. You can see the airport itself and the plane. It is an amazing, and the interesting part of it is you get the same number of days in Antarctica that you would if you took the 11 or 12-day cruise. So that's the beauty of it. So this is for people that are a little nervous about the Drake Passage, but more importantly, it's available for people that don't have the time but want to see Antarctica. Rachel, you want to continue on? I think is this one of your shots, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, this was from my trip a couple years ago on Silver Explorer. Many of you that have sailed with Silversea over the past 10 to 15 years, pretty familiar with Silver Cloud. We're converting Silver Wind to an expedition ship next year. They hold about 240 guests. And the great thing is with Silversea, I always say for expedition, you want to be on a smaller vessel because you want to get ashore. You want to be on these inflatable Zodiacs that you have up close experiences like this, seeing humpback whales, Zodiac cruising, seeing orcas, kayaking, hiking. And it's as active as a trip you want to be. Mark, if you want to click to the next slide, I'll talk a bit more. The other unique thing too with Antarctica, 2 landings a day, you probably spend about 4 hours total ashore. The rest of the time is spent on board. And Larry, I'm sure you had this with your wine group. There's a lot of time to enjoy the vessel. So sailing on Silver Cloud, sailing on Silver Wind, you can have some really nice wine dinners, pairing that in one of our specialty restaurants. This photo here was taken in South Georgia. South Georgia in Salisbury Plain, up to 60,000 king penguins. It's remarkable. Many of the landing sites in Antarctica, you can see anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 penguins. But if you're on our 18-day voyage visiting South Georgia, you'll be within 5 to 10 feet of these king penguins. Mark-
I thought you were talking about this was formal night to Rachel.
Yeah, it does. It does look like formal night, tuxedo
Which
night.
we don't have on the expedition ships, by the way. One of the things I wanted to mention, Rachel, is that the beauty of the Wind and the Cloud is that they're larger ships that don't carry a lot of people. And that does two things for you. They keep the sea better because they're almost 16,000, 17,000 tons, and they're long and good sized ships, yet only hold 240 people, which allows us to have a lot of facilities, including alternative dining, La Dame, and all those other things that are there. But the other thing that's kind of unknown is the fact that they go fast. Ships can do up to 20 knots. And what we'll do when we cross the Drake, or if we get to some rough weather, most ships, expedition ships, do 12 to 14 knots. If we see some weather coming, the captain will sometimes let the weather pass by, and then steam across as quickly as he can. So he can cross the Drake in 36 hours, where a normal smaller expedition ship that holds about 100 can only cross it in about 44 hours. So, and again, why don't you talk a little bit about this cruise, because I think you've also done it, Rachel.
Yep, great. And Mark, when you were talking about the size of the vessel, the other thing that's really important too with Silversea is the number of crew we have on board. So with our Antarctica product and the Arctic, it's almost a 1-to-1 crew to guest ratio. We have a team of up to 28 guides. So being in Zodiacs, walking ashore, small groups, 8 to 10 guests, and visiting a destination like the Arctic, you're only going to see wildlife ashore, no interaction with other humans other than the guests that are on board. So this particular trip, I highly recommend. Larry, if you're looking for another polar trip for a wine group, Arctic, visiting Iceland and Svalbard. What's unique here too, you'll get to see not only polar bears, puffins, reindeer, Arctic fox. Mark, if you want to click through the next slide, I'll just show a couple photos from my trip. My voyage started in Longyearbyen, 78 degrees north, and on the second day of the cruise, we went ice cruising, and we were mentioning the space on Silversea, being able to use this area of the ship. All guests are wearing their parkas. Within 4 hours, we spotted two polar bears and a couple walrus laying on the ice. So we went 81 degrees north, really unique there. Mark, next slide. I'll never forget the first time I saw a couple of polar bears. It is a truly remarkable experience. The Arctic is very different from Antarctica. The Arctic is like an African safari. You're searching for the wildlife. Antarctica, you're gonna see penguins every day. Next slide. But they have these gorgeous areas for Zodiac cruising. This particular area, they like to call it like the Jurassic Park of the Arctic, has these bird cliffs where you're gonna see thousands of puffins. So if you're an avid birder, I highly recommend an Arctic voyage.
Now, Rachel, we have another video coming up. My video stood still. Could you see the video moving?
No, the video didn't play, Mark. It might just be the bandwidth. If you want me to try on my end, I can share my screen.
I think we're going to go over, so I think we'll see if it plays. If it doesn't, then we'll just move on. Okay.
Perfect.
And by the way, I want you to talk about this too, because this is a great way to armchair travel and also plan for your trips.
Great. So we do have this Discover blog. It's something new we launched last year. Our expedition team provides content on remote destinations, whether or not it's Galapagos, Antarctica. We also have our mixologist provide some mixology classes, and then we also share all of these videos. So if you would like to review some of the video content that we have, you just need to go to discover.silversea.com and you have access to this. It's all just to get you excited again about the destination Silversea visits.
And now we'll see if this works. Yeah. Anyway, what it was is these two polar bears. It's a mother and her son, who she's trying to get rid of eventually. And they're just playing in the ice. Again, you can see it on the site. So please go to the site and check it out. It's also available on our YouTube page. So why don't you talk about this page, if you wouldn't mind, Rachel? They're probably tired of hearing from me by now.
No problem. So we do have some offers in place. One of the biggest ones that we have is a reduced deposit. So with any of Michael's upcoming groups for 2021, we will start planning for 2022, $1,000 deposit. And once you pay in full, that $1,000 deposit will be converted to a shipboard credit, which you can use on some wines on board, spa and salon treatments, which is great. We also have, Mark, if you want to click through the next slide, I think it's the Cruise with Confidence policy. And this really just instills that and protects you for your upcoming booking. You can cancel up to 48 hours prior to departure. And this is on for many voyages from now until the end of April of 2021, and receive 100% future cruise credit. So this is something that we're really trying to just keep your booking. If Silversea cancels, we'll protect you. Either it's a future cruise credit or a refund. But I say if you have anything in the future, just wait, because we do have this policy and it's something great that just protects you. Early booking bonus, 10% savings. This is an offer that we've had in the market for the past couple years. If you pay in full, and we have it by a certain date, every couple months it rolls over, you'll save 10%. And Michael, I know this is something that a lot of your clients like to take advantage of. Every destination, we do offer free international economy air or reduced business class air. And Mark, correct me on this for the Mediterranean. Is our business class air about, is it $1,500 per person round trip?
Well, it's $699 per person to Europe,
Okay,
and then for a period, and it changes. It's subject to availability, but and it's not like we're routing you 4 stops to get there. We try to use attractive space, but you do have to take the routing that we give you. But actually, I have some customers that book their cruises because they just want to get access to the air. That's how good a deal it is. So
great. And I think that might be the end of the presentation. And Michael, we could turn it back over to you. We'll take you off mute. I know you had some questions from your clients.
I did, and you covered a lot of them. You know, especially what the new travel policies are. The promotional offers are quite amazing. You know, the free air or the business class air is a great deal. 10% is a huge savings. So there's all sorts of great things. I think the business model that Silversea has is very good. A couple of things. A lot of our guests this year have a future cruise credit from what they spent this year. How's that work? Just so that we can understand what they do with their credit for next year and how it can be used.
Well, the good news is because we issued so many of them, Michael, and we wanted people to take it. Obviously, I think I told you we issued about $350 million in cash refunds, but we also issued about the same amount of money in FCCs. And what we did in many cases, particularly if we canceled the cruise, we made it 125%. And in those FCCs where we canceled the cruise, they're flexible. You can use them for anything you want to buy at Silversea. So, for instance, if you wanted to upgrade your suite, you could do so. If you wanted to buy the business class air with the extra money, you can do so. You can use them for shipboard credits. You can even bring somebody else along and spread it over 2 different bookings if you like. So it's basically cash that can only be spent with Silversea through Millennium Travel. So I think that's the easiest way to describe it. I think the one thing you can't use it for, but maybe I'm wrong, Rachel, is the insurance. Are they able to buy the insurance with it?
Yeah,
I guess yeah.
That just changed. I think you can, Mark. And the great thing is too, Michael, with I think some of your clients that were booked on this year's trip that was canceled, they did take advantage of the FCC. It's applicable for 2 years. So even if you don't plan to sail in 2021, you can use that on a 2022 voyage, 120.
And by the way, the last point is if you want to give it to a relative, like somebody like,
so
if
they
you
can
don't feel
spread
like
it out over
going,
multiple voyages.
you can give it away. So you can also give it away to a family or friend member. So
great. And that 25% is a generous return on their money. So I think that's a great incentive to stay on. what's the shipboard life going to be on board with, you know, the social distancing policies right now?
Well, you know, I obviously, I think when people board, we'll be asking, obviously, everybody to wear a mask. I think sometimes when you're transiting the hallways, we may ask you to put a mask on. But generally, like it is today, and you know, I'm in our place in North Carolina. It's part of a country club. By the way, that was my dogs. The lightning sirens went off, and it drives them crazy. And anyway, so what happens is once you're seated, there's no requirement for masks. We may be even a little bit more flexible in that because of the fact that if we're able to create this bubble on board where we know nobody has it, then we'll be even more flexible. But Michael, the beauty of our ships is that, you know, for instance, on the moon, on all of our ships, but on the moon, we probably have twice as many seats in restaurants as we have guests on board. So it's, I hate the word social distancing because you go on a cruise to socialize, not to be distanced. So, but if we have to keep the tables a certain, the occupancy of the restaurant about a certain amount, we can always open up tables in one of the other restaurants that we're not using at the same time. So there's so many different options that we think we particularly, but smaller ships in general, will have a little bit better time adjusting to the requirements at whatever they are. Obviously, I think you will have happen, and that's something I think you'll see our crew, particularly at the beginning of the cruise and probably when they're serving you, they probably in the beginning will be wearing masks until we determine that's not necessary, just because it's out of respect for you. As you know, a mask doesn't really do anything for you if you have, the mask is really so that you don't spread things to other people. So you will see our staff probably wearing masks at the beginning of the cruise at least, or when they're in a group of customers. So that's the changes. So we're going to try to minimize it because we don't want you to have a cruise that starts feeling like you're in a hospital. So we're going to do everything we can to make it flexible. Good examples is staging shore excursions. First of all, what'll happen is that you'll walk across the mat that's electrostatically charged. And what that does is it kills all the viruses and dirt and germs that you bring in and out of the ship on your feet. So it's just little details like that. And then staging it, if you have a motor coach tour, normally we only use about, if it's a 50 passenger coach, we put on 35 to 40. We'll probably be putting on half. I think you'll see more tours with smaller vans and private drivers, so you can keep groups together that are social together. So it's a little too early to tell, but we do know that part of our experience is that intermixing and meeting other interesting people. And so we're going to try to do that and at the same time keep everybody safe.
Okay, super. The air filtration system, I know you talked about it a little bit earlier and that. So that's what a lot of concern was about that.
Yeah, we're installing it in the entire, first of all, we're changing the system, rerouting some of the piping so that there's less sharing of common air than there has been in the past. And then there'll be extra filters. So for instance, when the air comes into your suite, it actually, if you remember when you're on a ship, if you over open a door, the curtains always fly out. And we do that intentionally because what we do is the ship is, we pressurize the ship. We pump at a high rate of speed air into the ship, which creates high pressure on board the ship. And that forces the air to circulate to the exhaust of where we want it to go. So historically, what's happened is the air comes in, and by the way, if you open your sliding door, it goes right out the door instead of through the regular system. But normally it goes through a venting system that goes out either through your door or underneath the toilet area. And so we've added filters there. And then we've also reduced the amount of air that's shared and created more exhaust vents on the ship than we've previously had. So we feel, particularly with the fact that we have so many, when we first introduced balconies, our poor refrigeration guys were really confused because what would happen was people would sleep with their sliding glass door open, and the guy's walking around with his gauge going, "Where's all my air conditioning going?" And so we've actually had to adjust the systems to be able to operate with people having windows open and things like that. So we're fairly confident. Again, part of this study is part of this board, this panel we have, is there's some experts in air filtration systems, and they'll be advising on us with additional work. And the great news, the ships are sitting still right now, so we're able to get some of this work done while we're pausing. Because every ship right now has anywhere from 30 to 50 crew members on board who are there just to make sure this, because these are systems, computers and engines, you have to keep running them, because if you don't run them, they die. So that the ship is actually, they're all sitting there with, they run a different motor every day. They run the computer systems all the time, test the satellite systems, run the air conditioning system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that when we know we're going to go, by the way, we'll probably need about 30 days to get the crew together, to get them back on the ship and get moving. The great news is the crew is now, most of them that weren't stuck on the ship for a while are eager to get back. So they're all experienced. So they'll be coming back ready to go to sea. So we can go back into service, again, unlike a big ship, probably within about 30 days of the day that we set the date to go. So assuming that airplanes are flying and all that other good stuff.
Mark, the big elephant in the room has always been about the financial stability and solvency. People are wondering, with all the refunds going out. I know you touched upon it earlier, but just want to.
Well, we're part of the Royal Caribbean Group. They just changed the name because they own 75% of us, and this is how comfortable they feel in the business. They acquired they had 66%. They acquired the other third about a month ago. So that's how they feel about the business. Again, they're a company that we made, and it's a public company. So if you want to go online and check us, our net profit, GAAP profit last year was, I think, very close to $2 billion, and that's GAAP, and a huge cash flow business. So, and during the last quarterly call, again, if you want to go online, you can check it. One of the analysts determined that we have cash flow where we could run for another 12 months without going back into operation. Obviously, we don't want to do another month that we don't have. But again, it's a company. It's kind of a joke in a way. If you owe a bank $1 million, you've got a problem. But if you owe them $1 billion, the banks become your partners because they have to. Because the alternative is, where would you like us to park these 88 ships we own? So because again, the ships are amazingly. And again, the reason our investors and the banks are willing to be flexible is because they've seen our history, and there's nothing wrong with the fundamentals of our business. The problem is that we've hit this on something that nobody considered. We went through SARS. It didn't affect the business at all because we were able to keep it off the ship. We went through the swine flu. We went through the bird flu. This was just one of those things where it got out quicker and it's probably the most contagious virus that so far hit the market. So, the interesting thing, it's not much more dangerous from a fatality perspective than the flu, but it's 100 times more contagious. And that's the basic problem. It's so contagious because it's pretty much, if you're talking, you're spreading it. So that's again the reason to wear a mask and wash your hands. Although you have heard from our health specialists, and they've told us that if everybody just wore a mask and washed their hands, we would be in a lot better position than we are today. By the way, that'll be one thing that will be tougher on. We always had the washing stations in front of or the hand sanitizing stations in front of every public room, and a server standing there saying, "Would you please, do your hands?" And they did, and people, sometimes didn't do it. Well, you won't be able to go in the room unless you sanitize your hands. So that's going to be one of those things. It's just important these days. And by the way, the buffets will most likely still be there, but again, they'll be more for display than anything else. And you can have a menu so you don't need to stand at the buffet. And if you want to use the buffet, there'll be a server to serve you like there always has been.
One other thing that I might add to that is the process of drinking more wine. That'll help keep everybody.
For sure. Works for me anyway.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, you might want to click on the bottom on the chat. A couple other comments that I think that the new paradigm in travel might be longer and more meaningful. And I think you get that on board in those discovering ships and things like that. So I look forward to the rebirth of the travel industry and the cruise industry. With that, is there when's 2022 schedule going to be launched?
End of August, early September. So it'll be in the next few weeks. I think you already have an advance copy. So if not, then we'll get you one. But we aren't sharing it publicly till September sometime. So
Michael, I
and
think
one of the things we've been trying to do is kind of anticipate where demand's going to be, and right now that's what we're doing based on 21. So
I know,
Okay.
Michael, there was a couple more questions. Mark and Michael, if it's okay with you guys, can we unmute everyone? I think there was a couple that aren't able to
It's a
type
good
in.
idea. Yeah.
All right, Megan, if you wouldn't mind helping me, just unmuting everyone. Mark, I know that there was one other question that was submitted in about restaurant capacity and space, and you've touched upon just the number of seats we have in the dining room. We never fill them full. Can you add to that?
well, again, it's kind of that. If you think about it, again, the Muse has 1,280 seats available in the different dining venues, including the grill and the pizza parlor. So and not everybody dines at once. So what we'll probably do is we won't fill every seat in like the main restaurant or in the salt restaurant, or have fewer tables in there, but then have maybe turn them over. Normally we don't turn tables over more than about a third of the tables. We may have to turn them over once, or we'll just offer special meals at different locations that people can take advantage of. So again, it's a work in progress. We have to find out what the protocols are going to be and what is safe. But again, I keep going back to this whole idea of creating a bubble so that we're comfortable that nobody has it before they board. And that includes our crew. We're going to go through even more stringent screenings than the customers do. So, and again, it's going to have to be a cooperation. My crew's got to do their job. The guests have to do their part to stay safe. And then everybody we contact along the way has to be safe and logical about how they approach things. So it's still a work in progress. But again, as you know, you walk in, and I have people say this all the time, La Dame only had, on the other ships, only had 30 some seats. And now it's going to have 65 seats. And so if you think about that, the ship holds 500, and it never has about 540 on it because of singles. We'll be easily able to have everybody have at least one dinner in La Dame because of the 65 seats and still keep distancing. And by the way, it has an outdoor dining area, which we've never had in La Dame before. We have the outdoor dining room in La Terrazza. So that there's so many different options that we can work with, they're working on. But it's one of those things, right now, when we talk to the CDC, we ask them questions and they say, well, you're close. It's like playing darts without being able to see the dartboard. That's the way I would put it. So once, we have our own vision of what's right, but again, we want to make sure that we're not missing something, and that's why we have this health panel.
Great. Mark, one of the questions in the chat box was, what is the frequency of staff virus testing during a voyage?
It will be the same. It will be, well, first of all, remember, they live on board, which is the beauty of ships. It's, it's not like if you own a restaurant in San Francisco where the staff all goes home at night. What do they do when they go home? Do they go home, or do they go to a bar and hang out? So we keep them on board. Obviously, they'll be allowed shorely, but there'll be restrictions on what they can do and what they can interact with. And my guess is that depending on the test system we have, ideally we'd like to be able to test people every single day, but we're not sure we can do that. There is an Israeli system, interesting enough, and also Oxford University, that has a test that basically is either saliva or a breathalyzer test, whereby you blow into a tube and it can tell you almost immediately whether you have it or not. And the same with the swab. They swab your cheek and put it in a machine, and it looks for it's done electronically. It's a pretty fascinating thing. And what we're waiting for them, it's in test right now. We had a test we thought was perfect. It was like a diabetes test or a iron test that you take where you prick your finger and you put it on a tab, and if it turned blue, you had COVID. If it didn't, you were just having a little bleeding. And we thought, wow, this is great. This is the solution, because it was instantaneous. And then we talked to the guys a little bit further and asked them for their studies, and it turned out it was about 50%, Correct. So that if that's the case, you might as well just flip a coin, right? Because 50-50. So we need a test that's over 98% accurate, and also can be done in less than, ideally less than 5 minutes, but maybe less than a half hour is going to be what we're shooting for. And again, trust me, there's a billions of dollars out there for whoever comes up with the right test, with the right treatment, and the right vaccine. So there's a lot of money being thrown at this. We get contacted every day by laboratories, drug companies, universities, all offering their help to get us to where we need to be. And of course, it will be a small price to pay for whatever we can do to make people safe.
Great, thanks. Monty, you're off of mute. I know you had a couple of questions, Monty. Do you want to ask them?
Yeah, hi guys. First, thanks for it. Can you hear me okay?
Great.
Yes, very well.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you guys have said. Very impressive. I'm on 2 cruises, as a matter of fact, including the Broadway cruise in February, which is the first time I think you're doing that with Playbill. But my major question right now is, what happens if someone is in fact diagnosed on board? Is there a way to isolate them, and what happens?
Great question. Great question, Monty. And this is one of the things we've already started doing. Already, as I told you, we don't have much circulation, and we already have one isolation ward in the hospital. So there's one ward in the hospital, one room of the hospital that doesn't share air with anything else. It's just a pure isolation intensive care room. We're going to add a second one of those. And then the other thing is that we're creating isolation suites. So we probably will, I think that right now what the plan is, if I'm not mistaken, is that 5% of the suite capacity will be designed so we can create them into isolation rooms. And those suites are all being set in a location where they don't share the air with any other's cabin. So that work's underway right now.
Thank you. Very well thought out. When I've got your attention, I've got 485 Silversea points. I'm looking forward to getting to be able to cash them in somewhere along the road. So let's get moving.
I love it, Monty.
Hey, from your lips to God's ears,
Scott, I think you had a couple questions. We took you off mute, so please go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Scott.
Hey, good. Great presentation, guys. Question I have is the medical board, is their recommendations or the new procedures going to be posted on the website?
Yeah, when this panel comes out, their recommendations and our protocols will be posted on the website. It'll be with all the protocol. We'll put the major ones in because this is going to make the Bible look small. There are so many. If you think about the attention to detail, from everything about how you clean the silverware to things, etc. So, but the key elements of it will be posted on the website. And it will also be included in a brief form in your tickets. And you'll also get a link to a place where you'll be able to click on it and it'll talk about COVID and things like that. One other question somebody I saw asked was, what about insurance? Because right now, COVID is, because it's a pandemic, it's not considered covered by insurance. We actually, when what we're working with now is our insurance carrier create COVID coverage so that it becomes covered regardless of the fact that it's a pandemic. And as you know, the trouble with insurance, it works on an actuarial basis. And right now there's not enough data in the system to tell them what the risk is. So, but they're working on that because obviously we want to make sure people are safe and what we can do to get people home. The other thing we're working with, and this is important, is getting governments to cooperate about what happens if somebody gets it. What do we do with the guest? Are we able to disembark them and get them home? So as you know, we actually didn't have a case on the ship, but we had to get people home, and we chartered a plane that landed in Florida, in Miami, and the governor of Florida decided that only Floridians could get off the plane. And so he didn't, first of all, he didn't want it to land in Florida, but he couldn't stop that. But so we had to actually charter, for people that weren't from Florida, we actually had to charter private planes to fly people to their home destinations, which is a bit ridiculous because the CDC had cleared them to arrive, the customs had cleared them to arrive, and I don't think the governor really had the right to do so, but I didn't want to argue with the state patrolman standing at the door. So.
Great. Well, Michael, I think that we answered all the questions. If there's anything else?
Well, I think after listening to all this, I think in the term what's happening, especially around here in Carmel and places like Napa and Aspen, the hotels are very crowded now. People are taking short-term trips, but you can't control who goes into a hotel. The amount of people that come and go, they don't get tested. People come just to dine or drink in the bars.
Our Asia Mile members are there.
Long term, I think will be the place that's safer, more secure because of the controls that you have. You know everybody that will be on board. They'll be tested before and during, and the controls will be much better in the long run on. So I think the outlook for is experiential travel, and especially on Silversea, top of the heap right now. So thank everybody for coming. Any last questions, shout. Otherwise, our staff's around working from remote and waiting to hear from you.
Bye, guys. Thanks for your patience, and I apologize for the technical problems, but I guess as they say, stuff happens. So
that's the least of our worries.
Yeah, there you go. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thanks,
Take care.
I got the wine. Thanks, Rachel. Good job.
Thanks, Michael. Great job. We'll chat in a bit.
Okay.
Great seeing you,
Bye.
Scott. We got to welcome
Bye,
you back to the shadow so you can see the refurbishment.
Oh, okay. We'll look for a cruise.
Yeah.
Stephen, are you there? He wanted to share something.
I think he's there.
We got an article. We got an article written. We were featured in the an article. I'll send it to you guys. It was an inspiration article written by one of our clients.